The last survivor of a fatal avalanche is helicoptered off K2, one of the climbing world's most demanding mountains.
You couldn't have asked for a better day in a million years. And only on K2 does a perfect summit day become a deadly day.
Disaster hit during the descent of a steep gully known as the Bottleneck.
The sun was shining, it was brilliant, still on the summit. But what happened on the way back, I still can't believe.
11 people are dead. Others stranded on the second highest peak in the world.
You're leaving a battleground. You're losing a war.
It's the deadliest day in this mountain's history.
We were all withering away. We were all slowly dying.
In June 2008, an international team of mountaineers set off on a journey to summit K2. Armed with video cameras, they'll record their attempt to conquer the unforgiving mountain.
What expedition is this?
It's K2 International Expedition.
Yeah, who else is there from international?
I am from Sweden. We are many from US. We are from Nepal, Australia.
Oh.
It's many countries.
The journey to K2 stretches from Skardu Airport in Pakistan onto the Karakoram Highway, the highest international paved road in the world. After many hours by jeep, the road ends in the town of Askol. From there, it's a long walk through deep valleys, narrow paths, and rocky hillsides. After 8 days of treacherous terrain, at the far northern end of Pakistan, close to the Chinese border, surrounded by some of the highest peaks in the world, lies K2.
When I saw K2 for the first time, I don't think I've ever been so scared and happy at the same time looking at a mountain. It's this creepy feeling between wanting something and trying to run away from something.
How's it look, Fred?
Wow, and
holy son of a... It's such an imposing mountain. K2 always reminds me of a child's drawing of a mountain, just harsh and very pointy. It's imposing. It is really imposing and very, it was serene, but also very filled with fear, actually. I mean, there was fear. It was real fear.
There are 4 main camps on the way to the K2 summit. Lower oxygen levels on the mountain mean every climber must stop on their way up to acclimatize to the different altitudes. The final push to the summit usually starts from Camp 4, leading through a technically difficult and notorious passage known as the Bottleneck. From there, a roughly 1,000-foot climb leads to the summit.
There's a simplicity of life that you have when you're climbing, and that simplicity of life is you're really focused on, you know, the basics of life: food, shelter, clothing, warmth, in your environment, what's around you. Being able to put everything else out of your mind and not focus on the distractions that happen in everyday life. And you're also focused on other people and your team members. because you really are trusting your life in other people's hands with every step you take. And, you know, the thing with climbing is once you reach the top, once you reach this goal that you've planned for 6 months, 9 months, a year, you realize there's a bigger goal, which is to come down. At times, they're conflicting goals, because sometimes reaching the top means you might not come down. And so you got to weigh out which goal is more important to you. And so for me, I look at it as it's the epitome of goal setting and achievement. It's so stark and so clear and so absolute.
Ropes are pretty twisted, huh?
Yeah. I guess the reason why I climb is to explore a deeper sense of self. Embarking on any kind of climb tests me in so many different ways that I come away from the experience every time a changed individual. I'm tested physically, for sure. I'm tested mentally. And I'm also serving as a physician on the team. I'm tested professionally as well, taking care of members of our team or other teams. I guess it's that challenge of trying to dig deep within yourself, discover the best and the worst in you, and see how you come out of it.
How do you feel?
Tired.
Yeah.
Really tired.
Arriving at Camp 2, the expedition gets a taste of the unpredictable weather systems on K2.
Yeah, weather's bad. We're going down from Camp 2 to base camp. There's not much we can do. And it's gonna deteriorate even worse. Wind's gonna pick up. So we wanna get the heck out of here before something really nasty happens.
Everybody talks about the rapid weather change that occurs on K2, and that's pretty much what happened. Weather could change on a dime. There isn't a lot of long, good stretches of weather high up on the mountain, and it makes it that much more dangerous because your visibility isn't as high, and you can't see rock fall, and you can't see ice fall, and you know, if you're climbing in a whiteout.
I think that the weather patterns on K2 has its own will. Often on high altitude there's hurricane wind, and climbing in those conditions can be fatal.
I remember one avalanche that came down. It started in the morning. It sounded like somebody was blasting dynamite, like 50, right outside the tent. It felt like the ground shook. And so we all ran outside and we looked up.
Jesus Christ.
That was a little more substantial. Yeah, that whole piece that was hanging down there.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's really dangerous. There's no safe way to get up through there.
It made everything very, very poignant and very clear of what you needed to be aware of, and being very concise about where you went up.
if you were up there about their Camp 2, you could easily get blown off.
Or it could trigger something.
Yeah, it could trigger something on
the other side.
Seeing that awesome power makes you think about other possibilities, how vulnerable you really are.
The other side.
Close to the foot of K2 lies a memorial to those who died climbing the mountain. While acclimatizing to the higher altitude, team members pay their respects.
It's only about an hour walk down from where our base camp was. And the Gilkey Memorial is a place that started when Art Gilkey died in 1953. After a heroic rescue carrying him down K2, he still died. And so they built a memorial.
Since then, lots of other memorials have been placed at this site, and it's a very somber environment when you go and visit this memorial. You're struck with how much loss has occurred in the quest to get to the top of this mountain.
Slovenian.
You read all these plates about people who've perished, who died on the mountain. You can read, died on ascent, died on descent, died on descent, died on descent. People fall down hundreds of meters and their bodies are just scattered. On K2, you don't find dead bodies. You find parts of bodies.
So I'm sitting there and I'm staring out up at K2 going, this is where people are spending eternity looking out at their choice of climbing K2. It's a very grim reminder of what you're about to undertake. I actually ended up sitting down and just allowing myself to cry. And Eric and Fred were there with me. And I think that's where our bond really started to grow strong from the first point.
Yeah. We've just arrived, Camp 3, 7,040 meters. It's a beautiful day, very warm, maybe too warm.
As we were pushing up to Camp 3, we were very aware of the atmosphere and how there was so much less oxygen. It took so much more work to take every step. You quickly get short of breath and lightheaded. You can't deny that there's huge danger up there. Just historically, what that mountain has dealt over the years, you know that it's going to force you to dig down really deep. It's going to test you in every possible way.
In addition to Frederick, Chris, and the rest of the international team, there are other expeditions on the mountain this year. Among them are the married Norwegian couple, Rolf and Cecilia, who tried to reach the top of K2 a couple of years ago, but without success. Back at K2, this is Rolf and Cecilia's new chance to reach the summit together.
All right. Fantastic job. Way to go. Fantastic job.
Good job. Finally here. Fantastic, eh? Such a relief.
Oh, yeah. Buddy. Hey. It seems like it should be shorter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When I was halfway, I thought, probably soon there.
Yeah.
Just around
just around the corner.
Just around the corner.
Yeah. When you go up, your muscle tells you you need to breathe or you have to stop.
Exactly.
But on the way down, it's so much easier and you don't breathe.
That's true, too. And at night, it's the same thing. You know, if you go up to a high camp, have a bad night, wake up with that kind of foggy headache.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you just haven't been breathing as much. Yeah.
After months on the mountain enduring bad weather, it feels like time is running out. But good weather is expected in the coming days, and a summit attempt is at hand for many of the climbers.
We got together collectively, the various teams on the mountain, to talk about how we might work together on the summit push. This mostly had to do with dividing up fixed rope and fixing gear, ice crews, how we were going to all distribute this and put up the route above Camp 4.
We take 400 meters. We are still up.
Okay.
Then the Italians got 200 meters, very strong, very reliable, for the traverse.
We had a good atmosphere all together, so we were really, really motivated to work together and just to finish this mountain, coming back in the base camp and then have a really nice party.
We got 400 meters, lightweight and very strong. So when the Italians take 200 meters, you don't have to bring anything.
300 meter.
Yes, 200 is the traverse.
Okay.
We were all becoming a little bit anxious about the weather and whether we would have enough time to summit. Some of the groups actually had been on the mountain 3 or 4 weeks longer than we had. They were getting pretty tapped out with their resources, their patience. So we all felt like this was our last best chance to get to the top.
Then after we are working like a one team. Yeah? Yes. We are working like a one team. No Serbia, no Korean, no Dutch, no America. There is only one summit team from every group.
Yes.
Of course, as a human being, you think that if you are with more people, that it's more safe because you work together and you have less workload, you know, and it's, you know, more chances to get to the summit. But actually, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, foolish yourself, because the more people there are, the more difficult or the more danger it is climbing the mountain.
More people than ever are going to be attempting the summit of K2 on a given day, and that could be a problem.
What do you say?
When so much money goes into an expedition to climb an 8,000-meter peak, the sponsors are ultimately seeking publicity. If there's tragedy involved, that captures headlines even more than if there's success. And you don't get famous for turning back on a big mountain. You know, headlines are made when you risk everything and lose everything, or when you risk everything and meet with success. The commercially driven aspect of mountaineering definitely played a role in K2.
We arrived at Camp 4, something like 7-7, 7-8, something like that. And tomorrow's gonna be a very tough day. The bottleneck looks scary.
We arrived at Camp 4 in the early afternoon. The sun was out, the winds were calm. The views over the Karakoram Range were absolutely stunning.
How you feel, Mr. Kim?
Yeah.
Good?
Yeah, good.
Yeah? Tomorrow, push for top. How you feel?
Oh, I feel great.
Yeah?
Much better than I expected.
How you feel, Marco?
Ciao.
Good?
Yes.
Yeah?
His position, flag.
Yes?
For tomorrow. For
very good. Very good.
Finish.
Yeah.
There was just this amazing feeling of anticipation and elation at having reached Camp 4. I think we all felt that we were so fortunate to be in such an amazingly beautiful place, in such an incredible austere environment at that time.
To reach the summit, you pass a narrow couloir overhung by seracs called the bottleneck. High altitude, falling ice, and steepness make this stretch an extremely dangerous part of the expedition. The bottleneck is located just over 1,000 feet below the summit. On On the morning of August 1st, dozens of climbers start their push for the summit. And the often unpredictable weather on K2 is for once on the same side as the expedition.
You couldn't have asked for a better day in a million years. It was perfect. There was no wind. The sun was out, bright, shining. You know, you would dream of having this summit day. But because it was so perfect, I think people stopped questioning themselves. The group decision-making applied more so than ever before. Of people were making the, well, you know what, it's a perfect day. Everybody's here. It's perfectly safe. What can go wrong?
Despite the great weather, everything's not right. The first group of climbers left 3 hours late. They spent valuable time looking for missing equipment. Now it's clear that if they reach the summit, no teams will be able to climb down before dark.
We are on 7,900 meters, something like that. And this is one of my more disappointing days I had for a very long time. Total miscommunication when it comes to gear and who should bring it. We're short of rope, we're short of gear, and we are way back in time. We are really late. I don't know what we're gonna do.
All these things added together made it fairly obvious for us that things can go wrong, and we don't want to be part of this.
Pretty disappointing coordination we thought was there. Not there at all.
There's not words to convey how crushed we were. You put so much effort into the climb up to that point. You've got so much invested. To be at a point where you have to turn the switch off and go down is such a difficult moment.
I had left a little bit before Eric and Fred, and so I had seen them turn around. And I'm looking at this group of people who are just, you know, they're not moving fast. It just doesn't feel like anybody's moving fast. It's just not working. The time doesn't look right. And I'm looking up and I'm saying, we're not going to get back down through the bottleneck by dark. And I don't think that's safe. I think we need to turn around. I'm looking up, I'm like, it's just not looking right. When I turned around, it felt horrible. It felt like I was making just the biggest mistake of my life.
The slow pace of some climbers pushing for the summit is a problem for everyone.
There were a lot of inexperienced climbers, you know, and on the other hand, there were happily there were also a lot of experienced climbers, and the mix is not the biggest problem, but the quantity of climbers, you know, that's of course always a problem, because the longer the chain, you know, there's always one part in the chain who is exhausted or who makes a mistake or whatever.
But at this altitude, even experienced climbers, like the Norwegian climber Rolf Baye, run into trouble.
How are you?
Good. But not a great day today. A hard day for me today.
Yes.
It's not a good day.
You mean with a small accident or conditional?
Also personal condition.
Yeah.
Down in Camp 4, Frederick and Eric suddenly hear a terrifying sound coming from the climbers ahead.
What's happening?
What do you see? Right in the bottleneck?
The bottom?
On the left, right?
Where? On the top left?
We just heard a scream, and we knew instantly that something really, really bad had happened.
We're trying to figure out what's just happened in the bottleneck here.
we're to a stage here where, you know, over 8,000 meters there at the bottleneck. And it doesn't take for much to go wrong to be catastrophic.
Okay, that's steering. Yeah, steering, this is Eric, Camp 4. Do you know if there has been an accident? Over.
Is he in the rock?
We got a radio call from the bottleneck that there was a person had been falling at the fixed ropes while trying to go around and pass another member. It was Serbian climber, Dren. He unclipped from the rope and passed Cecilia from Norway at the bottleneck and somehow slipped. He was just tumbling down longer than 200 meters.
I see up down.
Yeah.
The rock.
Dren Medrick, when he was falling, he was just, 3 meters away from me. You know, we were on the rope and everybody was just beneath me and some climbers above me. And he was just left of the rope, and I don't know what he was doing, but the time I heard a scream, I was looking and I saw that he just, he slipped and he was just tumbled over. And it was a really stupid moment because he was so close that you were thinking, oh, hey, give me a hand, and he was gone.
Yeah, we can see a lone figure down in the rocks at the bottleneck.
He's moving.
He is moving over.
Dren was still moving, and he probably was still alive.
In traverse?
Yeah.
The top traverse?
Yeah, Pemba is furthest to the left. Steering is down.
Pemba
So Fred and I made the decision to climb up and see if we could help Dren back down to Camp 4 safely. The decision to try and bring him back down to Camp 4 is something that we have to deal with the consequences of that.
Coming up to that spot, I see Iso from Serbia is dragging a person that is partially wrapped up. And then I understand that, okay, it's too late.
Dren's body is wrapped in red plastic. 4 other climbers gather around him, ready to bring him down.
So I get up there and they urge to bring him down to base camp, but I say that, hey, that's impossible. We can bring him down to Camp 4 if everyone's in for it and give him a worthy burial there, instead of just leaving him on the hillside like this. And that's what we start to organize to do.
So put this much faster. We enlarge those. With that rope there, no problem. And we auto here. Okay.
The Serbians and Frederick start bringing the body down. Frederick puts the camera in his pocket, but forgets to turn it off.
Let's see.
And so we are on 2 fronts, 2 here and 2 here. And the body's down here. And we're lowering him down. It's fairly steep here.
Guys, if you do fall, you release, okay? It's our lives too, okay? Yeah. Remember. Okay, slowly.
I just feel a huge load on my back.
Stop! 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 Stop!
The Pakistani high-altitude porter is falling into my back. And then he grabs the rope around my legs, and I can feel his entire tension of his body on my legs, plus the body from the Serbian dead climber. And some of the Serbians now on the left side is also losing their tension on the rope, which means that a lot of weight is put onto my legs, and I'm screaming out,
"Release the rope! Release the rope! Release the rope!"
And then he just loses the grip of the rope and start falling down.
Stop! 40, 40, Jesus Christ. Stop! Stop!
He passed probably within 10 meters of me. I think he was probably in some degree of shock, emotional shock, and also extremely exhausted. And those things might have contributed to him not being able to stop himself.
What the hell is this? One guy died. I came up here to help you guys.
Get down. Get down.
Oh, let's go down.
Back to down, guys. The guy had no energy. He could not come back up.
Despite the horrific events taking place beneath the bottleneck, Wilco and most of the others decide to push for the summit.
We talked about it, you know, what should we do? And then we said, yeah, listen, you know, all the SERP climbers are going back, so, you know, we can't, you know, do anything anymore. You are that far on the mountain, you know, that it's very hard to take the decision to going back because, you know, this is K2 and you don't get a second chance. And, you know, so we were thinking, if we reach the summit, you know, just before darkness, you know, we have a headlamp and all the ropes are there, you know, we can make it.
I look up and we still see this lineup of people going up across the traverse. And it's almost 3 o'clock. It's late.
I can't believe they're still going up at this time of day. They're going to be summiting at nightfall, which they did.
At 7 p.m., Wilco and the other climbers finally reached the summit.
It was so nice to be there, you know, and with that weather, you know. And we were so satisfied. We were dancing on the summit, you know, and I was, you know, filming and asking Gerard, hey, Ger, where are we? We are on the summit of K2. So, you know, it was, yeah, and the light was so brilliant. It was, I've never seen that in my life. It was really unbelievable. And then, you know, this curve of the earth, and I don't know how to describe it, but it was brilliant.
Maarten, we staan op de top van de K2! Yeah. Gerald, Cas, Pemba en ikzelf, over. Om 6 uur plaatselijke tijd, over.
There was no sign at all that it would go wrong on the way back, you know. So in our imagination, it was just a matter of 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, you know, going down.
You know what time we get down here?
The morning after reaching the summit, Pemba, who managed to climb down in the dark, has chilling news. The climbers in Camp 4 prepare for the worst.
Yeah. When we descending from the bottleneck, then I just reached the couloir, top section. Then there is nothing. No ice anchor, no rock anchor, no fixed line, nothing.
When Pemba reaches the bottleneck, he discovers that icefall from the Serac had completely severed the rope. The first icefalls caused several climbers to tumble to their deaths, including Norwegian climber Rolf Baye. The missing rope makes the climb down to Camp 4 extremely difficult and dangerous. A number of climbers are now stranded close to the summit.
We had to make a decision about whether to stay and assist people coming down or whether to get ourselves off the mountain. And after 48 hours above 8,000 meters, we were all withering away. We were all slowly dying. We had only 1 bottle of oxygen. I had no rope. Even with those things, trying to bring someone down above 8,000 meters is pretty much impossible.
Still a lot of people is missing up the mountain, and we are in camp 4 at 8,000 meters. We're tired, exhausted. We have to get down. There's not much we can do.
This is not a guided tour. If there were one person up there that we could go up and
4 or 5 people will do the rescue.
and half a dozen people go up and get down. We cannot do that with 9 people. It's the reality of the situation. We can care for people down here as needed, but we cannot physically butt people off this mountain.
Yeah, we've been 2 nights here already. Spending a 3rd night. I'm not sure if I can get down without oxygen, you know?
We just realized that we don't have the manpower, we don't have the strength to go up there and risk our lives. The thing you can do now is to bring down the people who has survived and get everyone safely back to base camp.
I mean, this theme of death on K2 is unfortunately recurring here. Death during descent. This mountain is notorious for this same scenario, unfortunately.
So we just rappel down the mountain. And it kind of, it feels that you're leaving a battleground. You're losing a war. Friends is up there, we lost them. And there's nothing we can do now. It's too late.
Using their last bit of strength, the climbers in Camp 4 head down to base camp. 11 people have already died on the mountain. Now Wilco and several others are stuck above Camp 4, struggling to stay alive.
I got a little bit in panic because I started to get, snow blindness. So I couldn't see clearly anymore. So I said, listen, guys, I'm getting to get snowblind. I have to go down immediately. So that's what I did. And because the other guys, they want to, to start, looking for this rope. And I didn't have the time anymore. I just went down straight.
We get a phone call from Holland saying Wilco's calling his wife. When people call their wives on a mountain after spending the night out, that's not a good sign. That's a giving up sign. That's I just want to hear my wife's voice one last time.
When she was on the other side of the telephone line, she was actually very quiet because I was saying also quiet. Hey, listen, I'm lost. I don't know where I am. But, I survived the bottleneck and I think, I can reach Camp 4, but they have to help me.
Dutch climber Wilco van Rooyen, separated from the other climbers on the mountain, prepares for a second night outside at 26,000 feet. Time is running out.
It was the worst night of my life. I was in a bad shape, in a terrible situation, and I knew that I was fighting against the wind because this little bit wind was, that was making it so cold.
On August 3rd, Wilco is finally rescued.
The water gas? Yeah, that'll work.
Several days after setting out to reach the summit, Wilco and his team member Kaz arrive at base camp, severely frostbitten.
I have to figure out where we slept. Yeah. And I think we slept still above 8,000 meters.
Shaking a little bit, so.
Wilco here has more involvement with his toes, and Kaz over here has deep frostbite injury of his of his hands, a little worse than on the left than the right. And we're looking at helicopter evacuation sometime tomorrow morning. And hopefully we'll keep all their digits. I remember Wilco asking about the fate of the others up on the mountain. This was a moment where he was realizing just how poorly the experience had gone for many of the others that had summited. We had to tell him that 11 people were known to be dead.
Well, some of the Koreans got back from Camp 4 today. The ones...
Many victims there?
Huh?
Many victims already there?
11. 11 people. Mr. Park, Mr. Wong.
But he's missed, or?
No, he's dead. Mr. Hugh, Ralph, Gerard.
After the rescues and after everything and we're leaving base camp, I felt it was really important for me to go and say goodbye. So on the hike out, on the day we were walking out, I actually walked to the Gilkey Memorial. And I was there by myself, and there's 11 new names.
I remember talking with Cecilia after all this happened and the summit attempt and after Ralph was killed, and she told me that that day they arrived at Camp 4 together. He said to her that this has to be the most beautiful moment of my life. I think in a nutshell, I think we all felt that it was a moment to be remembered for sure.
When I first went, there were plaques that represented people. Now there were people, and all that was left was plaques. And that was the thing that I really had to come to grips with.
Wilco's frostbite injuries require a large piece of his foot to be amputated. Frederick, Eric, and Chris make it off K2 without any permanent physical injuries.